It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something you play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Welcome into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. I am Da'Jzon Hughes, and it is time for us to spend another Saturday morning talking about sports. Good morning. I'm excited for another weekend of sports. Of course, we're going to continue to talk those red-hot Detroit Tigers. We're going to dive a little bit into some Lions and Michigan Lions and Michigan basketball updates as personnel continues to change in both of those areas. We're going to dive in a little bit on the UFL and the NBA as the UFL starts playoffs and the NBA finals are going on. And then I'll get into my picks as, once again, I had another great week last week. So we're going to try and keep that momentum rolling. As always, got to keep you updated on how I'm feeling. I'm feeling great. My favorite professional lacrosse team for outdoor started the season off beautifully with a 3-point win last weekend. Going to look for them to get another win this weekend. I'm also starting summer coaching, summer lacrosse. We have our first tournament today. So as you're listening to this, I'm actually already in Cincinnati coaching. So I'm really excited to, get this summer kicked off and hopefully grab some tournament wins, some championships, and of course, those lovely champion T-shirts. And of course, the Detroit Tigers are playing amazing, so I'm feeling great about that. And the NBA Finals should be exciting. So I have absolutely nothing to complain about as I continue to make life be life. Now let's talk about those Detroit Tigers. Last time we talked, they were in the middle of a series against the Royals, which I did pick, and I picked the Tigers to win, and they were able to win that series against the Royals 2-1, 7-5 in the first game, a 1-0 loss in the second game, then a 1-0 win in the third game, and then things got weird as they went on to play the second worst team in baseball, the Chicago White Sox. Yes, I said that, the second worst team, and as you're expecting, the Tigers won that series, right? No, they did not. Sadly, things did not quite go the way we thought that they would, considering the White Sox haven't been able to get a lot going. The one thing I can say is this was a home series for the Chicago White Sox, which really changes a lot. When they have had some success, it's been at home. 14 of the 20 wins this year for the Chicago White Sox are at Guaranteed Rate Field. A couple of them just came from the Detroit Tigers. To be exact, 2 of them did. The Tigers struggled in that early week series against the White Sox. They came out game 1 and looked like they were going to do what they have continued to do to the White Sox in the past couple of years, domination. 13-1 in the first game, and it looked like they were going to sail through the next 3 games and go out of there with a huge 5-game winning streak and continue to push their lead out in the AL Central and the MLB overall. And then game 2 of this series struck. 8-1 loss. An 8-1 loss to the Chicago White Sox is never acceptable. Even when they were good, we shouldn't be losing to the Chicago White Sox 8-1. It's not allowed. You can't be losing AL Central games that bad. Losing divisional games that bad blows, right? It's not good. But then we were able to bounce back in game 3. Tigers take game 3, 5-4, another close game, but a victory nonetheless. And then they lose the next one in a 10th inning walk-off, 3-2. So we end up splitting with the Chicago White Sox 2-2 in this road game series. They will play the White Sox again later this year. So it will be a chance for them to take sole control in that series against each other when they play at Comerica Park. And hopefully the Tigers have a commanding lead and possibly a sweep in that series. Before we skip on to what they have coming up this week, you already know where we're about to go. We're headed over into those standings. We're going to talk about where teams are standing in the MLB in their divisions, but also we're going to talk some score differential as well. Looking at the division first, right atop of the AL Central, it's those Detroit Tigers, 41-23. Sitting 6 games behind them are the Minnesota Twins, 34-28. And then 6.5 games back, 33-28, are the Guardians. And at 33-30 are those Royals, 7.5 games back. The White Sox, even after picking up 2 victories over the Tigers this week, they are still 20.5 games back at 20-43. Looking at the score differentials for the the AL Central, plus 91 for our Tigers, plus 37 for the Twins, and negative 17 for the Guardians, negative 3 for the Royals, and negative 57 for the White Sox. The top of the AL East are the New York Yankees with a plus 99 score differential. Right behind them, 5.5 games back at 33-29. At plus 47 score differential are the Tampa Bay Rays. And then finishing up third in the East is 33-29, 5.5 games back. Technically tied for second with a -1 score differential are the Toronto Blue Jays. In the AL West, the Houston Astros are 34-28 to be at the top of that division. They are plus 21 on the year. The Mariners are a game and a half back at 32-29. They're plus 2 on the year. Coming in third in that division, 29-34, 5.5 games back, are the Texas Rangers, who are -3 on the year. Switching over to the National League, at the top of the East, the New York Mets are 39-24. They're plus 71 on the year. Right behind them, game and a half at 37-25 are the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 18 on the year. Third in the East, 29-33, the Washington Nationals at -46 on the year. In the NL Central, the Cubs 39-23 at the top of that division, plus 106 on the score differential. The Cardinals 34-28, 5 games back from the Cubs at plus 26, and 5.5 games back from the Cubs are the Milwaukee Brewers at 34-29 at plus 25. And of course, in the NL West, at the top, 38-25 are the Los Angeles Dodgers, plus 76 on the year. The Padres, 35-26, 2 games back, plus 16 on the year. And the Giants coming in third in the NL West, 35-28, 3 games back from the Dodgers, plus 42 on the year for that score differential. And, I almost forgot to mention, the Detroit Tigers were a significant team this week. Why? They were the first team to hit the 40-win mark. They're already at 41 wins on the year, 41-23, 21-8 at home, 20-15 on the road. I mean, they've put up 317 runs to just 226 that they've given up. They're currently on a 1-game lose streak, but they're 7-3 in their last 10. So the Tigers are looking like they're well on their way to being the first team to hit 50 wins and probably the first team to hit 60 wins in this year. And they may even do so before we get to the All-Star break. When we're looking at the American League as a whole, the Detroit Tigers 41-23 at the top. New York Yankees game and a half back at 38-23. Houston Astros 34-28, 6 games back, tied with the Minnesota Twins for third, and then coming in fifth at 6.5 games back, the Guardians at 33-28. The Royals are all the way down at 33-30, 7.5 games back. And then the White Sox all the way at the bottom of the American League at 20-43, 20.5 games back. The Cubs are sitting at the top of the National League at 39-23. The Mets are a half game back, 39-24. The Dodgers 38-25, a game and a half back from the Cubs. Phillies 37-25, 2 games back from the Cubs. And the Padres coming in fifth at 35-26, 3.5 games back from the Cubs. So what do the Tigers have coming up this week? Well, they're heading into a series with the Chicago Cubs, which started last night. As you're listening to this, game 2 will be today. Last night on the mound, they had Skubal versus Brown. And on the mound today, that was at a 7:10 pitch last night, 1:10 today. So shortly after we get done here, first pitch will be Montero versus Talon. And then on Sunday, you get a 1:40 first pitch, Flaherty versus Horton. It's going to be a tough series for the Tigers. The Chicago White Sox are up in that realm of upper echelon for competition this year. So they will look to put points on the board, and they should be successful in doing so and getting runs batted in. So the Tigers' bats will have to be out, but that defense and pitching should be able to supplement for some of that. Then they'll play Baltimore Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in a 3-game series on the road. They are undecided on who's going to pitch in the first game. Povich will pitch for the Orioles. Mize going on the mound in the second game against Eflin. And the third game, Skubal will be on the mound against Kremer. Those are all 6:35 p.m. first pitches. Before we get ready to wrap up this segment, we are going to talk about who's leading the Tigers and where they're leading them. Currently leading in the batting average category at 282 with an OBP of 335 and a slugging percentage of 504 is Riley Green. Still leading the home runs category, Spencer Torkelson. He's only averaging a 227, but has 42 RBIs. He's tied with Riley Green, who also has 42 RBIs. He has 13 home runs to add to his 282 and batting average and 504 slugging. When we get over to our pitching, Tariq Skubal, 226, 2.26 on the earned ERA. He has 5 wins on the year and has 99 strikeouts. He's also leading the team in strikeouts. Casey Mize has 6 wins on the year, has an ERA of 291, so 2.91, and has a 48 strikeouts on the year. That's who's leading, and we'll be back to talk all about the Lions and Michigans and what kind of updates we got going on there when we come back with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Welcome back to Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Time to talk a little bit about the Lions before we talk some Michigan basketball. Both of them have some changes going on that the people should be aware of. First, starting with the Lions, Dan Campbell says he knows things will be tremendously different for his Detroit Lions without Pro Bowl center Frank Ragnow. But he said he has a plan. 7 NFL seasons, Ragnow delivered a bombshell as he announced his retirement at age 29 on social media on Monday, leaving the Lions to figure out what to come next. The coaching staff is adapting quickly. He will be sorely missed, but man, this train rolls on. And it's the next man up, says Dan Campbell. So we will be ready to go when camp hits. We've got plenty of versatility up there. We like the guys that we drafted. We like our free agents that we brought in. The young guys, Kingsley being one of those guys among others. So I've got all the respect for Frank Ragnow, and I love him to death. Without Ragnow, the Lions could tinker with a few options. They could plug in aforementioned Kingsley, a second-year center, or try out draft picks Tate Ratledge and Miles Frazier. The Lions also have veteran Graham Glasgow, who has the capability to play both guard and center. Ratledge was spotted taking first-team reps at center Thursday, which is the last day of the Lions' off-season program before the training camp in July, although several players were limited and absent. They also signed veteran Tristan Colin to a free agent deal this week. He adds depth to the middle of the offensive line after starting 7 games for the Cardinals last year. Offensive lineman Dan Skipper says it's a tremendous loss losing Frank. You can't minimize that loss. That puts a huge load on everyone else because he shows up every day. He's the first one in the film room, knocking on the door, figuring out the game plan. All the weird looks, the weird calls that you fall into, that's on someone else now. He's not here. So collectively as a unit, whoever's playing center, they've got to do that. Without Ragnow and Zietler, who signed with the Titans, the Lions will have to replace 40% of an offensive line that was on the field for the second most points and touchdowns of any 5-man unit in the NFL last season. It's different knowing that Frank's out of the fold now. It is. I hate to use that word unsettling, but there is acknowledgement like, okay, that's where we're at, and now we need growth. We need development quickly, and that's why Hank Fraley is the coach in that room. He's done a great job developing talent, and he's going to get these guys right, whoever it is, says Dan Campbell. I knew after the season that it was kind of up in the air on if he was going to come back, says Lion receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. I talked to him the last day when we were cleaning out lockers, and I told him I'm proud of him. Whatever he decides to do, we're going to be behind him and support him. Obviously, selfishly, we would have loved for him to come back and play 10 more seasons, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. Even after retiring, Ragnow still has the utmost respect from his locker room. Ragnow started 16 games last season, sitting out only week 4 against the Seattle Seahawks because of a partially torn pectoral muscle. Whenever you know it's time, it is the right time because it's not fair to him and it's not fair to his teammates or anybody else. So I respect him for the decision. It's not easy to do, but he knows himself, and I will always respect that, says Dan Campbell. So basically, the Lions are losing one of the best centers in the league, one of the best centers the team has ever seen, and it's going to completely change this offensive line. On top of that, they lost Kevin Zeitler earlier this year in free agency to the Tennessee Titans, so they're losing 2/5 of their offensive line. And then when you move somebody to another position, it isn't quite the offensive line you got before. So kind of losing 3/5 of their offensive line and having to, put those pieces back together is going to be interesting. Now, they do have tons of strategies. As we heard, they rattled off 4, 5, 6 names that are possible. 2 of them being rookies, and then you have a couple of guys that are coming in as veterans, and then some younger guys that haven't quite got a ton of run but have been around and in the league and have gotten a chance to get better. So there's nothing here saying the Lions should be in this huge panic mode, like their offensive line is going to fall apart and they're not going to be able to figure things out. Like, they still have Glasgow and they still have Penei Sewell. That's two out of those. Like, those 5 in particular can take one half of your offensive line and be spectacular, and at least you have that to fall back on while you can spend your time working on ways to catch the other 3/5 or the other 2 pieces up to the caliber of the rest. The plans are in motion. I don't expect Dan Campbell to let this whole ship just fall apart. He's a very smart coach, a very great coach, a very motivating coach. So I think he'll be able to find the right people to get into the right places and keep this offense to be as successful as it wants to be. But we do have to acknowledge and admit that this is going to be something to keep an eye on, and it could turn out to be something that is a road barrier and is a block for the Detroit Lions, because if they do have bad offensive line play, that running game won't be the same. Regardless of how good David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are, they can't break 10 tackles in the backfield. So if you're not able to block up front and give them great running lanes, your running game is almost non-existent, which means your passing game is drastically different because you're going to be passing the ball a lot more if you can't get running going. And you're passing from 8 yards plus. 3rd and long never goes well. So it could completely change the dynamic of this offense depending on how the offensive line comes out. But as a former tight end and a guy that kind of worked with the offensive line a lot, and then obviously you have Coach Haley, who is the offensive line coach. Those 2 minds together should be able to make things come together for the offensive line and keep this high-powered offense on a successful track. But that's really all we have for the Lions for now. We'll, touch in more as they get into training camp and we hear what's popping. In other NFL news, Aaron Rodgers, former Green Bay Packer, is now signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's reported to be at camp. That would obviously be an interesting topic for Jacob. I really wish he was still here so we could go back and forth about how he feels about Aaron Rodgers coming into the fold and what it means for the Steelers and if he thinks that they could have success this year. Obviously, I think Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He is going to need a ton of help around him. He is going to, come in and maybe not have the expectations that some people are going to have of him. But as long as he goes out and is himself, I don't see him and Mike Tomlin not being able to get that team to, checks notes, 9 wins, because that's what they always get to. So, we'll check back in with Aaron Rodgers and the Lions in a couple of weeks. Not that they're together. You know what I mean. Aaron Rodgers, the NFL, the Detroit Lions, all as a whole. For now, we're going to pivot over quickly to college basketball. We're going to talk about, obviously, the best team in college basketball, the Michigan Wolverines. They have some exciting news coming in. If you didn't know, There is a transfer portal guy by the name of Yaxel Lendenborg. He was projected to be a late first-round pick out of UAB, but he withdrew his name from the 2025 NBA draft to spend his final collegiate season at the University of Michigan. Right before he declared for the draft, he was in the transfer portal, and he's committed to playing basketball at Michigan, and then he entered his name into the draft. He said, while it's been and still is a dream of mine to play in the NBA, I feel the development and growth as a player and a person I will gain at the University of Michigan will be very beneficial. That's what Lendenborg told ESPN. The NCAA deadline for players to withdraw from the NBA draft and maintain college eligibility was Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Lendenborg, the number 26 prospect in ESPN's NBA draft projections, was one of the most productive players in college basketball last year, averaging 17.7 points, 11.4 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.8 blocks, and 1.7 steals per game, all while shooting 55% from 2 and 36% from 3. He led UAB to the NIT quarterfinals and became one of only 2 players in Division I history to post 600-plus points, 400-plus rebounds, and 150-plus assists in a season. And the only other person to do that, the legendary Larry Bird. That is elite territory to be in company with. He was also named Defensive Player of the Year and was a first-team All-AAC in each of the past 2 seasons. He said he would like to thank Coach May and the staff for allowing him to go through the process of the NBA draft without any pressure, the Champions Circle collecting for making this opportunity possible, and all the NBA teams he worked out for, allowing him to experience the pre-draft process. He says, go blue. Lendenborg was the number 1 big man in the NCAA transfer portal, committing to Coach Dusty May in early April. He spent the past 6 weeks exploring the NBA draft process, participating in the NBA draft combine and private team workouts. It's obviously rare for a first-round pick to forego the NBA draft in favor for an additional college season, but the 22-year-old Lendenborg's unique backstory contributed to his decision. He played only 11 varsity high school games as a senior and was moved across the country to a small junior college in Arizona after standing out in an exposure camp for Dominican players in New York. He said he was more into video games than basketball for most of his life. He would play 19 hours a day. It was a religion for him. But he wasn't the best student. His mom forced him to get on the plane to Arizona, and he says that was the best thing that ever happened to him. From there, he went to UAB, where Andy Kennedy was like a father figure to him. This past summer was really the first time he had ever had a real organized workout plan, just scratching the surface of the player that he can evolve into. And with more work, he can reach that potential. He steps in to obviously fill the void of 7-footer Danny Wolf, projected top 20 draft pick coming off a standout season at Michigan, where he played point guard, power forward, and center. Lendenborg said Wolf's success and the heavy usage he saw pushing the ball off the defensive glass and facilitating the offense and as a pick-and-roll ball handler played a part in his decision-making process. He says, it's amazing what Dustin May did with Danny Wolf. I would watch his games this season and say, man, I wish that was me. I'm trying to bring the same type of versatility he brought to Michigan. Obviously, that will look vastly different next year as they add 3 other impact transfers with Elliot Cadeau, Morez Johnson, and Ade Mara, as well as a freshman wing and McDonald's All-American Trey McKinney from the high school ranks. So Michigan basketball looking to be on the up and up once again, but we'll find out in the coming weeks if that will actually be the case. We're going to get ready to take another break, but when we come back on the other side, we are going to be talking all about the UFL playoffs and the NBA Finals. We've got more Mitten Madness coming your way right here on 95.3 WBCK.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back to Mitten Madness here on 95.3 WBCK. Time for us to talk some UFL playoffs before we dive into the NBA for just a second. UFL ended in Week 10. The Battlehawks got a 13-8 victory over the Defenders to finish 8-2 on the year. Defenders are 6-4. The Roughnecks were able to beat the Panthers 19-12. The Panthers end 6-4. Roughnecks are 5-5. Renegades 5-5 as well after they beat the Brahmas 23-6. The Brahmas ended the year just 1-9. The Stallions a huge 46-9 victory to finish the year 7-3 over the Showboats. Showboats just 2-8 on the year. That means the matchups for the semifinals. The Michigan Panthers will be on the road on Sunday at 3 p.m. to take on the Stallions, who are 7-3. That's in the USFL Conference Championship. 6 p.m. on Sunday, the Defenders will take on the Blackhawks in the XFL Conference Championship. When we look at the standings, this is what was expected all year long, as these four teams were kind of up and ahead on everyone else. When it comes to Houston Roughnecks, Memphis Showboats, Arlington Renegades, and San Antonio Brahmas, they were not close in this fight. It was just a matter of who was going to be in first and second. First place teams ended up being the Stallions and Battlehawks, so they will host the first round semifinal games for their respective conference championships. And then there will be the XFL or the UFL championship game. Birmingham actually turned out to be the second best team in the league, 7-3 with a +77 differential. They're currently on a 2-game win streak headed into the playoffs. The St. Louis Battlehawks, though, far and away the best team in the UFL. 6-game win streak, +68 on the year, and they're 8-2 on the season. Both the Defenders and the Panthers finished 6-4. The Panthers scoring much better than the Defenders did, a +47 rate to just +41 for the Defenders, but they're both on 2-game losing streaks. I won't talk too much about these games before we get into the picks, because I will be diving into both of these for our picks. But the bigger thing is the Michigan Panthers made the playoffs once again. And they're going to be looking to win that USFL Conference Championship and trying to get into that UFL championship game and shocking the world. I mean, we saw them have a good season last year. They bounced back again this year and had another really good season. And I mean, all it takes is them beating the Birmingham Stallions on the road. The tough part about that is I'm going to do some research here and see if I can find the first time that these two teams played this year. If you give me just a moment, I'll get there. I did. I found it in week 2. The Stallions beat the Panthers 21-12. And that was here in Michigan, which means it's going to be tough for the Panthers to bounce back and win on the road in this game. I'm checking to see if they played again this year, and I do not think so. They did. They played on the road in Birmingham, and the Stallions won that one 26-22, making it tough for the Panthers to be able to win. But it is extremely hard to beat a team 3 times in 1 year, which also makes me want to check on the other 2 teams that are playing. That is the Battlehawks and the Defenders. The Defenders beat the Battlehawks in their first matchup 27-15. Now I got to find when they played that second time so we can see if they split or if the Defenders are holding a valuable 2-0 lead over the Battlehawks. And they do. Or they don't. Sorry, they split. The Battlehawks won the second matchup 13-8. So that one is a little bit different. Split and split. We're just going to see who's the best team coming out of the XFL. But the Panthers have quite the uphill battle for them, as they got to try and beat a team that has had the best of them twice this year. Once in a game that wasn't so close, and then a second time in a game that was much closer. So it'll be a battle to see if the Panthers can come out on top, leaving Birmingham. But it's enough about the UFL until later. There's another thing that happened in the NBA, and, well, that was game 1 of the NBA Finals. It happened Thursday night, and, man, the Pacers came out to play, but so did the Thunder. The Thunder started this game and were in control for most of this game. I mean, 29-20 after the first quarter, and then they won the second quarter 28-25. So when you put that all together, they're up 12 at the end of the first half, and then they lose the third quarter 31-28. So they're down, they're up 9 going into the fourth quarter. The Pacers know what's in front of them. And if you've been watching the NBA finals at all this year, NBA playoffs, at all this year, you know the Pacers are cardiac. This is what they live for. They want to be the team that comes back. They want to be the team that gives you a heart attack and then makes you feel good about it in the end. And that's exactly what happened. They went into the fourth quarter down 9, and they won the fourth quarter 35-25 to give themselves a 1-point win. But when we look at the box scores and how things went, game leaders as far as points, Pascal Siakam led the Pacers with just 19, 7 for 15 from the field, 4 for 6 from the free throw line. OKC, you know what you're getting with the MVP. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 38 points on 14 of 30 shooting, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds for Nesmith. He had 12 defensive rebounds, so where all his rebounds came from. Isaiah Hartenstein leading the Thunder with 9 rebounds, 7 on the defensive end, 2 on the offensive end. And on the assist side, both Halliburton and Jalen Williams leading their respective teams with 6. Halliburton had 3 turnovers in his 39 minutes, while Jalen Williams had 0 turnovers in his 36 minutes. But as team stats, the Pacers shot 47.6%, while OKC only shot 40%. 46.2% from 3 for the Pacers, just 36.7 for the Thunder. 25 turnovers for the Pacers, only 7 for the Thunder. 56 rebounds to only 39 for the Thunder. So you see the discrepancies and how teams were able to crawl their way back into this game, or why leads were able to be built in the first place. When you're rebounding at a decent route and taking care of the ball, shooting at 40%, you're going to build a lead. But when you allow a team to shoot almost 50% from the field and have almost double your rebounds, even if they have 20-plus turnovers, they're going to be able to get in and compete. So that's what you saw on Thursday night. They're obviously going to be playing again on Sunday. The Pacers will be looking to take a 2-game lead. But if you also know anything about the NBA playoffs this year and how the Pacers have been playing, they've done fine getting out to 2-game leads. But then third game is where things go crazy for them, and they look like they've never played basketball before. I mean, look at the last series in the Eastern Conference Finals. They won the first 2 games in convincing fashion and looked like they were going to run away with the series and maybe sweep the Knicks before the NBA Finals. And then you look up and they got demolished by almost 40 in that game 3. It happened in their second round series as well, and I believe it happened in their first round series. So be on the lookout for them to come out and play fantastic in game 2, maybe steal another game in Oklahoma City, and then have things go drastically wrong at home in game 3. And then we can see the series really start to turn a tide and have a series, because it'll be 2-1 and we have no clue what will follow that. But, I mean, another Tyrese Halliburton game winner, 0.3 seconds left, a deep mid-range that he hits right over the defender, knocks it down, and you know he's celebrating. You know he's live. They were feeling it. But the question is, can the Pacers win games without being in that cardiac mode? Are they able to convincingly win a game for most of the game? Are they able to take control in the end and ride that momentum through the end of the game? Or will they always be in a position where they're going to need Halliburton to come and make a play? Because what the Halliburton, right? This is crazy, but I'm all here for it. That's all the talk we got. We're going to get ready to get into these picks on the other side of the break. We've got more Mitten Madness for you on 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back to Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It's time to get into these picks so we can get us into another fantastic weekend of sports. Giving us a quick rundown. Obviously, I came into last week with a very impressive 10-2 record after 2 weeks. And what can I say as I pat my own back? I'm pretty good at this thing. I had yet another fantastic week. Went 5-1 last week as the Tigers, Pacers, Dodgers, and Lynx all won their games. Blanchfield didn't get to fight as there was a medical disqualification, a medical cancellation, excuse me. And then the Panthers lost their game. So it gives me 5-1, 15-3 on this new set of picks. So we're going to roll into another weekend of picks. Got 6 games/events loaded up to pick in between, and we'll see if I can continue that strong streak and have more success in the pick realm. We'll start over in the UFC, going down at the Presidential Center in Newark, New Jersey, later tonight. Early prelims start at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. Prelims start at 8 p.m. on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. And in the main card, a PPV UFC 316 Da'Jzon versus O'Malley 2. But we're going to start with the co-main event, which is a women's bantamweight fight. It is a title fight. Juliana Pena, 13-5, the American who holds the belt, going against Kayla Harrison, 18-1, the American, the contender. 5'6", 134 pounds, 35 years old is Pena, 69-inch on the reach. She's an orthodox fighter. While Kayla Harrison, 5'8", 136 pounds, 34 in age, 66 on the reach, a southpaw fighter, plus 500 for Pena, while Harrison is negative 800 on the money line, plus 1,700 from a TKO, DQ for Pena, 275 for Harrison, 1,100 submission for Pena, 145 for Harrison, 1,400 by points for Pena, and 210 for Harrison. They're expecting it to go quickly, I guess. They're not expecting the fight to go the distance, as that's the favorite at 240. Plus 4.5, over plus 4.5 is 150, under 4.5 is 210, and then plus 170 for the fight to go the distance. This should be a fantastic way to open up, the weekend, or I guess close out Saturday night. This card is going to be insane, as Kevin Gastelum is on it. He will be taking on Joe Pfeiffer. Vincent Lecuc will fight Kevin Holland, Bruno Silva and Joshua Van, Sergey Spivak and Waldo Cortez Acosta, etc. So this is going to be a blockbuster event, and the co-main in the main event will be the perfect cap to this. And this is an interesting fight to pick because Kayla Harrison has been dominant in her recent goings at 18-1, but at 13-5 in a title fight, 5 rounds, the experience comes to play and it matters. And I'm going to trust Juliana Pena to retain her belt on behalf of that experience. She may be giving up a couple inches in height, but she does have a couple inches in reach. And once again, she has that experience. So it'll be interesting to see how these fights play out, but I'm going to take Pena to win in the women's fight. And going on to the main event, this one is a rematch, as Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley will be taking each other on again. This is a bantamweight main event title fight, as Dvalishvili is 19-4, O'Malley is 18-2, as Dvalishvili is 5'6", 134 pounds, 34 years old, 68-inch reach. While he's an orthodox fighter, O'Malley is 5'11", 135 pounds, 30 years old, 72-inch reach, and is a switch fighter. So that's something to keep in mind as well. What we do know is this is part 2, so they have already fought before. Negative 280 Dvalishvili on the card, plus 230 for O'Malley. Dvalishvili is from Georgia. O'Malley, the American fighter, plus 850 on the KO, TKO, DQ line for Dvalishvili, just 375, plus 375 for O'Malley, plus 900 on submission for Dvalishvili, plus 2,200 for O'Malley. Minus 160 for points for Dvalishvili, plus 650 for O'Malley. Under or over 1.5 rounds is a minus 1,000. Under 1.5 plus 1,500. So they're expecting this to go a while. Does it go the distance? Is a minus 260 on the favorite, plus 190 for the fight not going the distance. This is an interesting fight because what's always interesting about fights that have already happened before is both fighters have that advantage of knowing what the other fighter likes to do and how they like to fight and have that experience with each other. And Da'Jzon won the last matchup, which also adds to the fuel and the fire of this. Will O'Malley be looking to get some payback, or will Da'Jzon be able to remain on top? I'm going to lean on the side of trends. I'm going to lean on the side of history and say that Da'Jzon comes out on top again, beating O'Malley for a second time, which will refrain from seeing a Da'Jzon O'Malley part 3. That's going to get us over into some other happenings of the weekend. This stuff going down on Sunday. We're talking the UFL. The Michigan Panthers going down to take on the Birmingham Stallions. Panthers were 6-4 in the regular season. The Stallions were 7-3. The Stallions did beat the Panthers twice this year, once in blowout fashion, once in a much closer game. This game this time is for the USFL Conference Championship. Birmingham are 1.5-point favorites. The over-under line sitting at 46.5. We talked through everything that pertains to these two teams. I'm going to lean on the side of history and trends. Although it may be hard to beat a team 3 times, I think the Stallions simply just have the Panthers' number this year, and they're going to come out on top and win another USFL championship and a chance for the ultimate UFL championship in a week. Following that up at 6 p.m., as the Panthers-Stallions game is ABC ESPN Plus on Fox at 6 p.m., you get the 6-4 Defenders from D.C. traveling on over to St. Louis to take on the Battlehawks, who are 8-2 in the XFL Conference Championship. The Battlehawks are 2-point favorites. Their line also opens up at 46.5. They split their regular season. The Battlehawks win by 5. The Defenders won by like 4 or something like that. The Defenders blew the Battlehawks out. The Battlehawks won a close game. 2 very different teams at the beginning of the year than they were at the end of the year, and 2 teams that are going to put out a fantastic product come Sunday night at 6 p.m. It's going to be great. The tough thing to do here is to look at the metrics and decide which one of these teams is better. I think the one thing that I have to lean on between these two teams is the fact that the Battlehawks are currently on a 6-game win streak. Yeah, you heard that right. 6 games in a row. They have not lost since week 3. I believe they lost weeks 2 and 3 and have not lost since. Do you hear yourselves? 6 straight wins in the UFL. They're taking all of that momentum, and they're able to score the ball in bunches into the playoffs, and we expect them not to be good. Are we for real? Get out of here. The Battlehawks are going to win the XFL Conference Championship again. They're going to go on to the UFL Championship to most likely take on the Stallions. And we'll dive into that matchup and talk all of that and pick it next week. But I got the Battlehawks and the Stallions making it out of their respective conferences with championships, looking to hoist the UFL Championship. That's going to get us over on to the hardwood. This time in the WNBA, the Seattle Storm, who are 4-4 on the year, they're 1-2 on the road, are going to be traveling to take on the Phoenix Mercury, who are 6-3 on the year. They're 5-1 at home, though. Seattle's opening the game as 4.5-point favorites, and it stays there. A 54.1% chance for the Storm to win this game, while the Mercury only have a 45.9% chance. Diggins leading the team at 16.8 points per game with 6.4 assists. Nneka Ogwumike has 9 rebounds per game to lead the team, while Sabali is doing the thing for Phoenix, leading them with 20.3 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 2.7 assists per game. There are some significant injuries to think about, as Katie Lou Samuelson is out for the season for the Storm. Natasha Mack and Alyssa Thomas are out but expected to return for this game, so we'll find out if they actually do play. Megan McConnell and Kalia Copper are expected to be out June 27th and June 15th, respectively. But this is already a third game of this series. The Mercury won the first game, which was at home, 81-59, and then the Storm won their first home game of the series, 77-70. This game, game 3 of the series, is going to be back in Phoenix at PHX Arena. 10 p.m. on the tip-off, and I'm going to have to lean toward the side of caution. These two teams seem to like when they're playing at home, and they seem to do well when they're playing at home. So I'm going to lean on the home team to win yet another game. So I'm going to take the Phoenix Mercury over the Seattle Storm to take a 2-1 lead in the regular season series, although all signs are pointing toward the Seattle Storm being the better pick. That's going to get us into our last pick of the week, also on the hardwood. This time, we're at the Paycom Center down in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, as the Thunder will be paying host once again to the Pacers in Game 2 of the NBA Finals. This is on Sunday at 8 p.m. on ABC. Pascal Siakam obviously leads the team in points at 20.2, while 6.9 rebounds per game for Siakam as well. 9.2 assists per game for Halliburton. On the other side, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leading the Thunder, 32.7 points per game, 6.4 assists per game for the MVP. Isaiah Hartenstein, 10.7 rebounds per game. OKC opening this game is 10.5-point favorites. They're only giving the Pacers a 39.3% chance to win this game. There's versus a 60.7% chance for the Thunder. The Thunder have outscored the Pacers most of this year, and both teams have obviously done respectively well in the playoffs. So all that's left to say is that I think the Thunder are going to win this one. That gives me the Thunder, the Mercury, the Stallions, the Battlehawks, Davashvili, and Pena. So have an amazing weekend, as I will do the same. We'll be back next week with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by AirwayCashForJunkCars.com.